fire release, wind release, and lightning release? What if Naruto had employed a training regimen that consisted of these three chakra natures throughout his training period with Jiraiya, and by doing so, creating a Keke Tota, being a line of jutsu combining these three nature releases, somewhat mimicking that of the Tsuchikage's particle style, and possibly making him just as famous. So, without further ado, what if Naruto had Blaze release? Not to be confused with the Uchiha's Black Flame, nor Scorch. So, with that out of the way, roll that intro. The task force of shinobi who had been readied to take revenge on Asuma and suppress the Akatsuki further had been sent to prepare for their mission. They are set to meet at the Leaf Village gate so that they could take off. This is when our main character Naruto is run up on by a familiar face, the grandson of the third Hokage and nephew to Asuma, Konohamaru Sarutobi. Konohamaru runs up to Naruto, even ditching the big bro formality and just calling him Naruto. He would actually call out in more of an act of frustration. Naruto would look back to see someone he sees as his first student and would be quickly attacked. He would be confused as he would fall to the ground after Konohamaru had jumped on him. He sees Konohamaru punch him once and then just tug at his shirt practically. Naruto would want to say something, but would be stopped by a tear that falls on top of his face. Konohamaru is crying and grieving, so Naruto would instead stay quiet. Konohamaru would ask how dare Naruto not tell him about this or even ask him to come with. This is his family. He gets it, he was never too close with Asuma, but that's his own blood. He has to take part in it. Asuma was one of the last people he had left. Even in those few moments they spent together while training, he felt so much closer to Asuma and everyone in his family just by doing that. And now he's got no one. And he would thus once again punch Naruto. Naruto would now build up the courage to stand up. He would stand up and embrace Konohamaru in a hug. He would quickly start empathizing, I guess you could say, as he would say, Konohamaru, I know exactly what you're feeling right now. I've lost everything more than once. I lost my parents, I lost my best friend, and just a while ago, I lost one of my teachers. I know exactly how you feel. I might be the only person right now who does. And believe me when I say you can't go on this mission. Konohamaru at first would be confused, as he would look up to Naruto with a hint of remorse in his eyes. But Naruto wouldn't stop. He'd say, Konohamaru, I know you want to get revenge on the killer of your uncle, but there are other people who want to do this too. And you being there, you might get hurt, or even worse, killed, and then we'd be left avenging you. So how about this? You stay in the village and grind up your blaze release, and eventually, we could go get Orochimaru. We both have our reasons for wanting to kill that sick bastard. You for the sake of your grandfather, and me for Sasuke. So, is that a deal? Naruto would break the embrace with Konohamaru, taking 2 steps back and putting out his fist. Konohamaru would at first stand there in shock as he would first swoop up the tears with his fist, forming it and then punching Naruto's in some form of mannerly, I guess, bro fist, as they would come to an agreement. Konohamaru would become strong enough so that no one would need to be in danger. Everyone close to him could live comfortable lives in the village, and he could be out there protecting everyone, like Naruto and all the other Jonin. So, he would agree. He he would run off as Naruto would say, "Work on the wind release, you need it," as Konohamaru would turn back with a big smile on his face, throwing a big thumbs up at Naruto. Upon seeing this, Naruto would turn around to be faced with Konohamaru's friends, Muegi and Udon, who would practically be standing there sobbing. When he questions why the duo are sobbing, they reveal that that was the most beautiful sight of brotherly kinship they have ever seen, and so on and so forth, which would leave Naruto to give off one laugh and tell them to be off. They would run off and attempt to go find Konohamaru, and maybe have him sneak them some training, which would leave Naruto to eventually meet up with the rest of the task force and actually keep this interaction a secret. So, this would be them prepared to go get revenge for Asuma. So, they would set off. Quick intersegment here, guys. Recently, I have been getting into Twitter a lot more, as in using it as an outlet of information. So, if you're interested in maybe having a say in community decisions on stories, and even the schedules on when your favorite series might release, go check out my Twitter, as it might give you some insight on when you could expect to see certain things popping back up on the YouTube channel. On top of that, we are trying to hit 1,000 followers by the end of the year over there, so even if you don't want that information, go follow me. I'd appreciate it. And with that out of the way, let's get back into the video. As the Revenge Task Force sets off to prepare for their fight against the Akatsuki, we would see Shikamaru, one of the two leaders of the group, come up with a strategy. This strategy involves information that he had gathered during his last entanglement with this group. Obviously, he would spread the information on his whereabouts of their abilities, meaning they have a rough estimation that both of these characters are immortal in some way. But he'd also start explaining that he theorizes one of them can only die several times and to an extent, while the other one physically can't die in the first place. So he would suggest some form of strategy. In this case, it would start off very similar to in canon, which is where we're going to initiate this form of combat after asking both Yamato and Naruto to hang back. So, with this encounter starting, we would have Shikamaru using his initial shadow possession jutsu to attempt to grab them from behind, which, as one might guess, as in canon, would fail, via Kakuzu sensing the approaching chakra and telling his teammate Hidan to back away. This way, they're able to avoid Shikamaru's jutsu, but are inevitably caught by the knucklebusters of Asuma being thrown into their shadows by the Shikamaru who had off-guarded them. They had originally attempted to block as they had expected the kunai to explode, but instead it had entrapped them within their own shadows. This is where we progress into the more canon-like battle, as Shikamaru would link his own shadow with theirs and explain some things about Asuma and tell them that he will get his revenge. This is where he would lead to use Hidan more specifically to attempt to attack Kakuzu. But this would nevertheless be thwarted by Kakuzu being able to use his unraveled hand to break himself from both the jutsu and ward off the attack from Hidan. This is where Hidan would tell Kakuzu to break off the attack for only Kakuzu to be hit by a spiky human boulder performed by Choji and his spiky hair. This at first would appear to not do anything, and Shikamaru would reveal to his teammate that this is the jutsu of Kakuzu. On the other hand, Kakuzu would once again attempt to break Hidan's possession. This is where Kakashi is able to bypass Kakuzu's censoring with a lightning-sharp speeded Chidori. He's able to break the first heart of Kakuzu, which would lead into the battle getting more intense off the bat, as Kakuzu would kick Kakashi, who thought he had killed him, away and break Hidan out of his possession. This would now leave Kakashi, Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino all facing off the Akatsuki, meaning that they are currently standing face to face and preparing for a battle. Kakuzu in this preparation would shed his heart as they would come outside of his body to help him fight. This is where he would in canon create a giant vortex out of wind which would rip apart the surrounding forest, then emblazing it to burn down what's left. This, though, would be countered by Naruto's own wind style, as he would prepare to create the giant, we could so call it, hurricane. Naruto would interfere with the largest Odama Rasengan he has probably done to date, as he would almost completely unravel the hurricane and even land a powerful blow to Kakuzu, which, as one might guess, doesn't do much due to its non-elemental having nature. This would introduce Naruto into the battle, with Yamato following suit. Shikamaru at first would scold Naruto, saying that he had intervened too fast, but Naruto would explain his observations, that Kakuzu was about to set that vortex ablaze, which would obviously surprise the Akatsuki, as usually people don't see things like that coming since it is not commonplace. This is where there would be a short interaction between Naruto and Kakuzu, where Naruto would unveil the blaze release of his own, where he, in yet another Odama Rasengan, this time a little smaller, would be able to take out the counteracting hearts to both fire and wind, meaning that Kakuzu has already been gotten rid of 3 hearts, meaning that he is down to his last 2. This obviously puts him in a sticky situation where he is a lot more stressed and would tell Hidan to stop standing there and instead help, since they're in actual danger. This is where we'd have a conversation a little bit earlier of Kakuzu making the analysis for Naruto to be the Nine-Tailed Jinchuriki. Naruto would with confidence claim the title and would continue his fight. But nevertheless, this is where the two groups would split off. Naruto, Kakashi, and Yamato taking on the remainder of Kakuzu's hearts, while the Ina Chikasho formation would be trusted in getting rid of Hidan. This would obviously lead to no major changes in at least the Kakuzu fight, except for the fact that it would be sped up by a lot, and Kakashi's life wouldn't be in as immediate danger. Kakashi would obviously think Kakuzu is a lot easier to read now, basically figuring out what he's capable of, meaning they only have 2 hearts left to destroy, with the counteracting elements being water and earth, which are 2 elements, one of which he possesses to a high degree, and the other, even both, Yamato does, meaning this should go by pretty easily. But as soon as they destroy another heart, and even believe to have beaten Kakuzu by Shikamaru's plan working, as I need to switch over to explain. So here, with the Hidan battle, Hidan would have been facing off against the Ina Chikacho formation, having swept at a bunch of the individuals and even almost hit Choji, as the human boulder does put him in position to be hit. But nevertheless, Shikamaru, the hero that he is, would jump in the way to counteract the strike. Here is where a short bout between Shikamaru and Hidan would happen, with Ino even attempting to mind possess him, which would obviously not work, which is where Hidan would reveal his inactivity in chakra due to his immortality. Shikamaru would make some analyses on him not being able to use jutsu in that case, and he would do not but to confirm it. He would eventually believe to have struck Shikamaru after getting really upset or at least angry on the situation, having been avoided for so long. But he had actually fallen for Shikamaru's trick. He had actually sprinkled a bit of Kakuzu's blood onto Hidan's weapon, which would result in Hidan's entire ritual taking place over Kakuzu, meaning we can once again switch back. With us back at the initial group, we see Kakuzu fall to the ground, as Hidan had stabbed himself through a vital point, this being what seems to be Kakuzu's remaining heart within his own body, which would obviously leave the 2 hearts remaining to rush towards him. Naruto and Kakashi had primarily been dealing with Kakuzu himself, while Yamato was holding off the hearts, meaning their attention would be switched as soon as he falls to the ground, thinking that Shikamaru's plan had in fact worked. This is where his heart would re-enter his body, leaving that weird impressive version of Kakuzu, who would inevitably be counteracted by Yamato, revealing to us that the two remaining hearts would be that of fire and lightning. So, to counteract this, Yamato would at first attempt to use wood style, which would seem to be ineffective. Naruto and Kakashi, with their attention back on the battle now, would face towards the enemy. Seeing that Yamato's jutsu was not quite able to destroy him, and even none of their jutsu seemed to be effective, as they can't quite counteract these two hearts, they would discover that it's way too difficult to actually interact using these two elements with those hearts. Obviously, Kakashi would attempt jutsu like the Great Waterfall or even the Water Dragon, but it would seem quite ineffective, which would leave Kakuzu actually attempting to take one of their hearts, which would lead us to an interesting point. This is where we would have Kakuzu attempt to steal a close range attack from Kakashi and obviously use it against him to be able to take his heart to refuel his own. This is where Naruto would see an opening. He would at first attempt to do the Rasen Shuriken, something he had been working on for a long time. But similar to when Kanon, as he is about to hit Kakuzu, it would fade away after only dealing some scorch damage to his clothes. This would obviously have broken Kakuzu away from Kakashi, but would have left Naruto in a troublesome scenario where he would be hit back. Kakashi would tell Naruto not to attempt that again, but Naruto would nevertheless say he wishes to. He would have a speech about how he'd never grow unless he's able to win fights like this. You know, the important ones. He's taken out one Akatsuki member, he can take out another. So he would beg from Kakashi and Yamato to buy him a few minutes, as he would create shadow clones. This at first seems rather odd, even to Kakashi, as Naruto hadn't necessarily used shadow clones to at least form his Rasengan ever since his return, meaning that this must be some last sort of gambit into making the jutsu work, and it would turn out to do so. He assigns 3 different clones. He would actually himself be channeling the raw form of the Rasengan, while each individual clone would be harnessing an element, with one harnessing wind, one harnessing fire, and through Kakashi's observation, the other harnessing lightning. Meaning Naruto has created his first official complete Blaze Release Jutsu in the Blaze Release Rasen Shuriken, which would be thrown at Kakuzu, and Kakuzu, obviously attempting to dodge, would jump up. But similar to how Naruto did with Pain, he would be able to redirect it using his wind release to be able to move upwards. Now Kakuzu is in a situation where he is forced to be hit. But the big difference here is instead of him just being shredded to pieces, he would be paralyzed in place thanks to the lightning and even electrocuted to a degree, being sliced and even incinerated, meaning Kakuzu would turn up nothing but a pile of ashes. On the other hand, Hidan is still having his interaction with Shikamaru. Shikamaru would finally stand up from his seemingly injured position, revealing to Hidan that he had in fact actually hurt his opponent, saying that that was the strategy that Asuma gave his life for, and it seems to have worked. As Hidan looks around, he sees that Ino and Choji would finally land in front of him. But along with them landing, he is able to notice many a string attached with paper bombs. Shikamaru would smile as he would reveal deer within the forest. He says, "My family's deer will watch over you for all of eternity." As, like the badasses they are, the Inochikasho formation walks out of a burning forest created by a giant explosion, prepared to lay the seals for Hidan's eternal rest. But with the passage of yet another arc and the death of another 2 Akatsuki members, this part will be coming to an end. I would like to thank every single person who stuck around for this series so far, since I am having a lot of fun making it, and I do hope the rest of you are enjoying watching it. So if you want to show your appreciation for me and this series, make sure to go down into the comments and say thank you for creating this. And with that out of the way, every person you see on screen currently is an active member of the channel, meaning they give me financial support to use YouTube as a creative outlet, meaning they do kind of supply these videos to y'all. And if y'all want to see y'all name on screen or even have a contribution to the community, consider clicking the join button. But it does have a little bit of joy since the members over there get member exclusive content. So if you want to see one of the many things that no normal channel participant can see, go check it out. And yeah, this has been your boy Six. Peace.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Subscribe for more.
Yada yada does it.